Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Beer Blather 184. Say it, and they will believe it. It's going to become apparent to you in a few seconds. For those of you who are new to this joint, we are coming live on our channel in Odyssey, in YouTube, and Twitter. Now, Twitter and Odyssey, we're going to get to the end. YouTube, we're going to cut it off at one point because, hey, we don't like the boob and they don't like us. So we just come out there, folks, so that those of you who still subscribe to our channel in YouTube get to see that we are someplace else. If you want to see the show in the entirety and you're in YouTube, in the description, you're going to find a link that will take you to the Odyssey channel. Because of all of this, the chat function is only paid attention to in Odyssey, while the chat works in YouTube and you may chat amongst yourselves. We are not monitoring that. And in Twitter, there is no chat. You may leave a comment if you will. But if you want to participate in the chat and you want the chance that we may pick up on it and talk about it, you need to come to Odyssey. Speaking of coming to Odyssey, this is where you can get to support our channel. So if you're new to this, click on subscribe and notifications. And if you find it in your heart to contribute $2.50 per week to keep the channel open, hit on join and become a member of the channel. You'll get access to members-only programming like the VIP room on Tuesdays and other stuff that we may from time to time put out there. And the chats, it works pretty much like YouTube. If you want to support the channel, just click on support. While you're in the chat, there is a $sign in the chat, and you can make a contribution or kind of like the super chat, or click support under the video and you can make a contribution directly to the channel without showing up in the chat. And if all of these is not enough, then you can always come to quadverum.com/support us and help with the upkeep of this channel and SQV. And now that I said all of the commercial stuff, well, not all of it, because I didn't beg. You see, begging requires an extra donation. We're not going to do it now. This is Saul Montes-Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information from my golden cage in Florida. And right next to me, right over there, the guy with a black beanie, Thomas Wictor, the only living expert in World War I flamethrowers and so many more stuff, surviving stoically the shenanigans of Californication, which is not easy, I understand. Is it, Thomas?
They're sort of...
Sorry, I think you were muted.
Oh, am I back?
Yes.
Okay. California and a lot of other states are beginning to come to their senses about a lot of things. The leading Democrat in Minneapolis, or maybe she was some kind of state rep, I don't know. Anyway, she led the defund the police charge, and she just got carjacked and severely beaten by 4 teenagers, and her leg was broken. And she's now done a 180. She wants the police not only refunded, but funded more. She thanked the officers for helping her, and she now wants to start putting people in prison. And she posted a picture of herself with a bloody head. So once again, I mean, I don't congratulate people for learning that if you put a butter knife into the wall socket, you'll get electrocuted. I've never put a butter knife into the wall socket. So if somebody...
You have no idea how much fun you're missing here.
Well, if somebody does that and then screams and says, you know, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. I need to spread the word. I'm not going to go, you're so admirable. I'm
Yeah. But
not really.
how about if you go out screaming, you have to ban electricity, it's dangerous for the people?
Well, the I mean, the thing is that a lot of people are discovering electricity. They're discovering that if they jump off of skyscrapers, they're going to die. They're discovering all this stuff
Hmm.
that I've known my whole life, and I didn't have to do it in order to find out that it's really bad. And
Yes.
it's the weirdest thing because it's. I just watched a review of the 1987 movie RoboCop, which was directed by the Dutchman Paul Verhoeven, and it takes
Yep.
place in some future. And the reviewers were talking about how so much of Verhoeven's vision from 1987 is now our reality, but
Yeah.
um, it's
Minus the Robocop.
it's confined to only blue states and cities because the much despised red states turn out to be superior in intellect than these people.
Well,
Um,
I'm going to say what I've said a gazillion times. Around the world, there is this image of the U.S. as a violent society,
mhm.
which is peddled by Democrats and other vermin in TV, in Hollywood, and the U.S. is like this dystopian Mad Max place. And of course, everybody has a gun, and we're all using them to kill children or some crap like that. Where I live, we leave the keys in the car. People don't lock their doors. Police is generally miles away if needed, but when needed, they do show up. And for most of the US, life is in idyllic peace. If you read the local newspapers in little towns across America, and in the police section, you have that somebody found the door to the barn open and a garden hose was missing, or an extension cable, which is probably a neighbor who took it and returned it 3 days later. The violence is concentrated in a handful of Democrat shitholes. Places like Los Angeles, San Francisco, Baltimore, St. Louis, Austin, Minneapolis, New York, D.C., Chicago, obviously. When you take those out of the statistics, the US is the least violent, safest place on earth.
Yeah, and you know, all these socialist utopias, they have an incredibly high sexual um, assault rate. Michael Caine made a movie several years ago, not that long ago, called Harry Brown, where he's a veteran of the British Marines who's watching his council neighborhood. It's been taken over by drug dealers and soulless, heartless teenagers. And finally, when his best friend is murdered and the cops do nothing, he takes matters into his own hands and he uses his Marine training. And the police think it's other gangs doing this. So it's pretty amazing. And what finally gets the police to move is gun violence. And the police commissioner makes this thundering speech to the public about we show zero tolerance for gun violence and the rape and the drug dealing and the assaults and all of that.
Go on unabated.
Yeah, and um, to a lot of to leftists, the gun. Years ago, the last time around with the AR-15, I don't know if you've noticed, but the hysterical babble about the AR-15 has died down again. But years ago, some idiot wrote a piece about shooting an AR-15. He's an anti-gun guy. It left his shoulder bruised for days, and it was like it was the most terrifying experience of his life. I have a Henry 45-70 hunting rifle, and that thing has got like 3 times the power of an AR.
I was going to say, what do you have? Elephants in Los Angeles?
No elephants, but it's just something I saw, and I decided it's much cheaper than an AR-15,
Yeah.
and I mean, you can't. If you have an AR-15 in California, you could only get 10 rounds for it. And a lot of places online where you see it's like, we don't sell to California. This is a lever action rifle.
Yeah.
It holds 5 in the magazine and 1 in the chamber. So if you can't save your life with 6 rounds of that, then
You're toast.
well, you deserve to go out.
Yeah. It wasn't your day. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, it dovetails immediately into the topic of tonight's conversation. If you say it, they'll believe it.
Yeah. Let me make my first what you call it, Goebbels quotation of the night for that one, and that would be: make the lie big, make it simple, keep saying it, and eventually they will believe it.
Mhm.
Of course, there is something to that effect among the Jesuits, a popular saying: lie, lie, something will stick. As a matter of fact, from St. Ignatius of Loyola, through Ed Bernays and Goebbels, to Saint Blessed Hussein Obama, they have all used the same propaganda technique of repeating the lie ad nauseam until people assume it's true.
Yeah. No, Norman Mailer coined a term called factoid, and it's
Yep.
it's a falsehood that people think is real because they saw it was repeated by the media. And okay, a story came out that Elon Musk cut off Starlink in order to keep the Ukrainians from launching a drone attack. Musk has said that story is entirely false because Starlink never covered the Crimea. So who do you believe? The story never.
His biographer, who has a recording of Musk. But on the other hand, there is something else Musk said that I have to give him the point, that Starlink, in the terms of service, cannot be used for violence, war, or illegal activities or anything of the sort.
Yeah,
There is a second Starlink that they have developed for the U.S. military, but
yeah,
it's a completely different thing. But you cannot use Starlink to guide a drone with a grenade to your neighbor's house. It is
yeah.
a violation of the terms of service. So the point is moot. Musk, and I don't like him,
No, I don't either.
but he's under no obligation to actively participate in a military operation he doesn't want to participate in.
Well, I mean, okay, I heard people saying he sold them the product, so he shouldn't be dictating to them how to use it. That's done all the time.
Yeah, by the way, yeah, it's terms of service.
In terms
And
of
B, he didn't sell anything when the Russians invaded Ukraine. He moved satellites to have coverage in Ukraine so that people could communicate with each other and facilitate, among other things, their
Yep.
exit to, say, Poland or whatever. He did a solid for the Ukrainian people by
Yeah,
allowing them to have internet at a critical point.
yeah.
He's under no obligation to do more than that. Actually, he's under no obligation to do that either.
Well, see, the whole thing is very confusing right now, and I've put it all in the open file because the press has it in for Elon Musk, which is funny because he's a lot more like them than he is like the evil Trump. But
Hmm.
people again are forgetting that the Ukrainians are putting out tons of misinformation in order to
Yep.
cover up what they're doing. They're fighting the war intelligently. We,
Yes.
on the other hand, have gotten it in our heads that we need to be transparent. So we had the daily briefings on the various conflicts we've had, and our generals had to be confronted by idiots who don't know anything about anything. There was no purpose in doing that. We embedded reporters who, according to, I can't remember who the writer was, but he said that he watched Americans giving up all their rations to Iraqi children, and the nearby NBC reporters weren't filming it. And he asked them why, and they said it's not something we're interested in. And they were shaping that whole story. I mean, there's a movie been made about the Afghanistan, the kill team. The kill team was one unit in Afghanistan who were all prosecuted for committing war crimes. Their commander was an idiot who announced beforehand that he wasn't going to follow any rules of engagement, and he got sent over to Afghanistan anyway. His men committed atrocities. This one little small 6-man unit,
Unit.
he got relieved of command, and they all got sentenced. Some of them may have been sentenced to death. I'm not sure. So, or Abu Ghraib. Abu Ghraib was a bunch of people with about a 50 IQ building butt pyramids and pointing at peepees, and it was
Oh
blown.
yeah, and getting selfies with corpses.
Yeah, and
That's a form of torture, you see, because the corpse is so psychologically. It's a corpse.
it, I mean,
It is a social indignity, maybe, but ain't torture.
that thing. I mean, talk about the big lie. Um, there was a documentary called see, I've put Iraq out of my mind, but the documentarians gave Iraqis, 100 Iraqis, video cameras. And the number of men who said they wanted to go to Abu Ghraib because where else could they get an American woman to play with their penises? I mean, it was amazing. Nobody was outraged. That
No,
I read Iraqis saying if Americans think this is torture, they should like look into what Saddam did in Abu Ghraib
they should have been here 6 months ago. You know.
with the acid chambers where
Yes.
acid dripped on you and or the official Saddam rapist. That was his business card, rapist for the regime. And
The one of the several I witnessed was to position a man with piano wire under the back of their knees and the arms tied to the legs so that his own weight would cause the piano wire to cut through.
yeah,
Do you have any idea how long it takes?
no, and we've never done anything like that. Our war crimes consist of basically shooting out of hand, which is a
Yes. And
prosecutable crime. The people
yeah,
who do that should be hanged, but we don't torture people to death. Even the kill team didn't torture people to death. They just
no. And the Abu Ghraib teenagers, uh, all of them were immediately cashiered, court-martialed, and sent to jail.
yeah. The whole
from
thing.
the commander to the latest one. Victorious armies don't do that.
Yeah, yeah.
We did while we were in combat. And by the way, and we did it in a public manner that gave our enemy stuff for propaganda, which I think is utterly ridiculous. The American press acted as a propaganda office for the Taliban in this affair.
The Taliban, Al Qaeda, the Islamic State. Remember when um, al Baghdadi was killed and they called him an austere scholar instead of the head of
Oh
the
yes,
group? One of the worst.
amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and no,
I suppose that when Bin Laden died, they should have done something like Islamic humanitarian dies uh,
well, okay.
in Pakistan.
There are two quick stories. An Iraqi brigadier general decided to surrender himself to the Americans and offer to be killed as if his men were allowed to leave. You know, you can kill me if you. And when he arrived, the Americans saluted him, and he offered his firearm, and they said that's not necessary. And they said, return your troops to the barracks, and everything will be fine. And he thought to himself, why are we fighting these people? You
Right.
know, because if they were Iraqis, we would have killed all of them. And then in Afghanistan, an Afghan general of the Afghan National Army was being shown um, like a command center. And when he entered the room, somebody yelled, "Officer on deck," and everybody stood to attention. And he said, "At ease." And when they were explaining things, they were calling him sir. And the reporter asked, "Why are you saluting him and calling him sir?" And it was like, what you're saying, Mr. Reporter, is that you wouldn't, because you see him as a third world monkey. You know, you
I
don't.
see him as an officer.
That's the American. That's what the American said. He said, because we salute officers, we call officers sir. Like, what's wrong with you? And that's the problem right there. Is the press
Yep.
is invested in.
Let me reinforce this. Our friend Faisal from Saudi is on deck.
Mhm.
And I'd like to ask him, as a Muslim, Faisal, if you were in any particular way offended by the shenanigans of Abu Ghraib.
Yeah.
Let's see if the narrative of our press holds water. Um, and well, going back to the thing, uh, the reason I know that he's there is because he says Abu Ghraib is nothing to the Iranian atrocities and horror. The things that I know, that I'm told frequently from my friends in Kurdistan, of what the Iranians do to their prisoners. It's not something you'd like to talk about.
The Iran-Iraq war is famous for the footage of unbelievable atrocities that came out. And, you know, fellow Muslims, in most cases, both were Shiites. So don't tell me that there's this Muslim brotherhood. There's no such thing. Um,
Yeah. Sarah is also saying American teams were the first to arrive in Mexico City to help when the 2017 earthquake. Yes, and I would add during the 1982 earthquake too, in the 1975 earthquake in Lima as well, in the 1974 earthquake in Managua. No kidding. Uh, our rescue teams are the first to arrive, unless it happens to be, say, Turkey, in which the first to arrive are the Israelis,
yeah,
because of course they're next door.
Erdogan has quietly moved on from that whole anti-Israel thing.
Yeah.
No, it's the big lie. You've got a quote there about the press from
Oh,
Mr.
let me
Goebbels.
find it. Let me find it for you. I want to read them. I mean, I remember them, but I want to read them because
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want to miss a word. Think of the press as a great keyboard on which the government can play. Of course, he wasn't referring to a computer keyboard that didn't exist at the time, but to a piano keyboard. So the government plays the press as Beethoven played the piano.
This
Uh,
is why in authoritarian countries there's no such thing as a free press, and it's
no,
why in this country, um, every time
I don't think there is a free press in the U.S. right now, but that's my
well, that's
opinion,
the thing.
not a
In
fact.
this country, every time there's a Democrat, there's not a free press. They're not free to ask Biden whatever they want.
No.
Um, it's all scripted.
Yep.
And
And by the way, did you notice when Trump canceled the credentials of that little spoiled 4-year-old Abilio Acosta?
yes,
It was a major shit. Biden just canceled the credentials of 47 journalists at the White House. Have you heard any protests?
no, I didn't even know that happened.
Has the White House Correspondents Association said peep?
No, of course not. And
Of course not, because the dictator can do as he wishes.
the okay, I was telling you about the progressives who aren't going to vote for Biden again. Um,
Yes.
one of them was saying that Biden should just cancel. He should just start using his executive orders to ram through, um, a radical progressive agenda. And he, of course, and none of the idiots in the roundtable pointed out that his executive orders regularly get overturned by the Supreme Court because he doesn't actually have the authority to do a lot of what he's doing.
No. I mean, not any more than Governor Grisham has the authority to suspend the Constitution, wipe her ass with the Second Amendment, and enact a prohibition, albeit for 30 days, to exercise your constitutional right to carry weapons in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
I mean, who suspends the Constitution? Let me see. Peron,
Hmm.
Fujimori, Somoza, Fidel Castro, Franco, Mussolini. Those are the people who suspend constitutions and the law in order to enact emergency measures that allow them to wipe out whatever is itching their ass at the moment.
Well,
Grisham is shown that she has the instincts of a Latin American dictator.
all Democrat politicians have those same instincts because they're all from the same cesspool. Um,
Yeah,
it's about raw power, and the big lie that they spew is that if Trump is elected, then democracy is being threatened, and it's like, how? Well, there's no answer because it's not being threatened. A
no.
federalist
Well,
you can't have a federalist dictator. There's no such thing.
no such thing. But I will tell you more. I would say that right now, as we speak, democracy is in intensive care.
Democracy, what?
Democracy is in the ICU, in an intensive care unit.
Oh yeah.
As long as we have a president who does not hesitate to issue executive orders that go beyond the scope of an executive order, uh, to uh, force people to do what is patently unconstitutional. I mean, come on. The latest idea they're floating is put ankle bracelets on illegal immigrants so they cannot leave Texas.
Yeah.
What are we going to have? Internal passports now?
No, it's this is the sort of thing that a real press would be up in arms about. They call themselves, the watchdog of something, or the fourth arm, or all this self-serving crap. They've they were much better at. They've never been balanced, but they were at least better at grudgingly covering things in a more neutral light than they are now. That The main problems are deconstructionism, which is the notion that words have no meaning, and
Derrida making rotting hell.
yes, and also accountability journalism, which was started by the Associated Press, and
Yes,
that says that a reporter should use his or her biases and make a villain in every story. Every story needs to have
yes.
a
And
villain who.
don't forget, speak truth to power. How fucking arrogant in its own imbecility can those people be?
Well, it's. I mean, it doesn't mean anything to me. Speak
No,
truth.
no, no. But to them, to me, it means that these idiots consider themselves the owners of truth.
Yeah, yeah. But
Speak truth to power. Who told you you know the truth, you little nincompoop?
well, you can't. I mean, see, they.
You report the facts. Let me figure out the truth.
It's a stupid phrase because on the one hand they don't believe in an objective truth, and then on the other
Yeah,
hand they're claiming that they alone are the gatekeepers of the truth.
yeah,
So these are self-negating statements. You hear this my truth. I ran
yeah.
into this when I was trying to make a documentary about the four Palestinian Blather boys who Hamas killed in order to frame the Israelis. And I couldn't get a single reporter who was on that beach to respond to me. And one of them finally said that he could not help me because what he saw was his narrative, his personal narrative. And there were 50 different reporters on the beach, and each one had their own personal
Right.
narrative. So him
And they
providing,
all wait the same.
yeah,
Uh,
they
here's
provide
here's
50
time for
narratives.
this is a good opportunity for more Goebbels.
Mm-hmm.
It would not be impossible to prove with sufficient repetition and a psychological understanding of the people concerned that a square is, in fact, a circle.
Yeah,
They are mere words, and words can be molded until they clothe ideas and disguise them.
yeah. No,
That's what your journalist was doing.
yeah, and in the case of the Bacher boys, that guy changed his story 3 times. He changed his story radically. He said first he was in the hotel, then he said he was on the beach, then he said he was in a different hotel. Um, there were people who saw an Israeli gunboat firing at the children. There was no gunboat out there. It was not filmed. Um, I pieced together exactly what happened. It there was no one video. I bought the raw footage from the Palestinian cameramen. You wouldn't believe how cheaply they sold their footage. I still have
Right.
it. The documentary turned out to be a disaster because the documentarian lied to me and he told me he was going to make an atom bomb that would destroy Hamas. And then when it came time to show me the rough cut, it was balanced, and he actually interviewed terrorists. And I told him I can't put my name on this. This is not what you promised me. And he said, but we have to do this or no one will put it out there. And it's like a million outlets would put it out there. But you know, what can you say? So I gave up, but I did prove without a doubt that this was a Hamas operation, and
Yep.
they murdered the 4 little boys beforehand, put their body on the beach, but the operation went wrong and they had to improvise, and the whole time the press covered up for them. The press was told that the press saw things with their own eyes, but they lied.
But they had to follow the narrative.
They had to follow the narrative. They were presented with a
Yeah.
narrative beforehand, and
Which is back to Goebbels, his lie and repeat the lie.
yeah,
And in any journalist that steps out of timing, they get fired. They don't get sent again.
yeah, yeah.
You,
No,
you, you're invited as a talking head in a news program, and if you do not repeat the mantra that you get on an email beforehand, they won't call you again.
Yeah.
There are very few that actually will call you from time to time for you to give your opinion, but those I can count with one hand,
Yeah.
with the
And
fingers in one hand.
no, and okay, it's not just the other side. Our side,
Oh boy.
not 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 the people who you and I respect and support, but people on our
But
side.
the people that I have grown to have no respect for and I don't give a shit about, say the Gateway Pundit.
Yeah, they are presenting the big lie just as badly as the other side is.
Yeah.
And one of these lies is that I don't know the guy's name. He was I don't know if he pled guilty or what, but anyway, he was at January 6th. He was at the Capitol building. He had a megaphone and he was telling people to go inside and wreak havoc. And he was arrested for incitement. And the right, there we go, incitement. And this is what he was charged with: incitement to imminent lawless action. This is a recognized crime. The Supreme Court, many Supreme Court cases upholding restrictions on speech believed to be subversive, have relied on the idea that such speech is forbidden. And this is what this guy was charged with. And
But by the way, this is not a new concept. In this article that you sent me, I must say,
yes,
they're quoting Schenck v. United States, where in 1919, Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. observed the question in every case is whether the words used are used in such circumstances and are of such nature as to create a clear and present danger that they will bring about the substantive evils that Congress has a right to prevent.
exactly.
It couldn't be clearer.
It couldn't be clearer. You are not allowed to use language to incite people who are on the very edge of violence. And
Yes.
that's exactly what this guy did. He got charged for it. He's looking at 120 days in prison. And this is
Oh
this
God, make it 120 years and call me again.
well, see, this is being presented by people such as Tim Pool, who are saying that the First Amendment has been outlawed. This is a lie. This is a big lie.
This is a
And
lie.
the you can't incite people to violence.
Listen, you're in the middle of a riot. A riot. You egg people on to burn a police car.
With
They
a
burn the police car. That's it.
yeah,
You crossed a line you shouldn't have crossed.
yeah,
And by the way, there are something like 19 different circumstances in which the Supreme Court has already ruled that the speech finds a limit.
yeah. And there are people, there are genuine free speech absolutists, and they're off their rocker because
Yeah.
there is no such thing as an absolute right. There is no such thing. It does not exist under any circumstances. The government has the right to kill you if you commit certain crimes.
Yes.
Um,
And it does. Not as frequently as I would hope, perhaps more frequently than you would like, because everybody has a different opinion on this.
I'm agnostic. I don't. I
Yeah.
need support
No, no,
nor.
no. I didn't mean to express your opinion. I'm saying for some, it's not applied often enough. For others, it applies all too often. For some, it shouldn't be applied at all. But nevertheless, the government does it.
Yeah, and
And
it's perfect.
I for one, I'm not going to condemn the government for frying Timothy McVeigh.
No, and McVeigh himself, it's funny. He claimed he wanted to be executed, and then he filed all sorts of appeals, and finally he gave in. But no, it's it doesn't matter. Okay. It's like
Yeah.
abortion.
But wait, aren't we all endowed with the right to life?
Yeah, we are, and the government has a right to terminate that life. And
Yes, and you can forfeit that right by committing certain actions.
exactly, and free speech has limitations. I discovered on Gab that there were people who
Okay.
were discussing the best way to find out where I lived and to come and murder me for supporting Israel. And I was told just to block them, and it's like that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, right. So I
Um,
don't know what they're up to.
yeah, so I just left Gab, and that was that. And at some point,
You
both
you removed the irritant.
at some point both the left and the right have shown up at my place, and I've taken care of them. They're still alive. They're changed. Um, and I told them spread the word. Don't come here. And nobody else has. So it's I shouldn't have to do that though, because somebody else allegedly has the right to plot against me, create an organized plot, and send some dipshit out here to like do me physical harm. I shouldn't have to turn into some foam mouthed maniac and put on this show of homicidal rage just to get people to leave me alone. I should be allowed to live my life in peace. And this is why there are laws against conspiracy. A conspiracy is speech. That's all it is, speech and planning. It's illegal.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
illegal.
But apparently, to plan to besmirch the president with a supposed relationship to Russia as a spy for Putin, and to conspire to bring all of the elements of the state, the courts, special councils, to make his life miserable and his presidency as ineffective as we possibly can, is not a conspiracy.
Well, see, that was another thing I noticed that I read the comments, nobody talked about it. In this progressive roundtable, um, one of the progressives said she wasn't going to vote for Biden because she was looking at the doomsday clock and we were closer to the end of the world than ever before. And the other guy said, what about, why would you elect Trump? He was harder on Putin than anyone's been. And it's like, wait a minute, I thought Trump was a Russian agent. And now you're like, you just see, these people lie so much that they can't keep track of their own lies. And
No.
all you have to do if you're ever discussing politics with these people is just point out, but you were saying this, and I mean, they have no argument. It's literally a farrago of lies, and it works for some people. Um, I
Well,
mean,
some people evidently believe that the square is a circle, and they do so with, say, carbon dioxide.
yeah,
And yes, by the way, I know that most of our audience does not need any preaching. Carbon dioxide is not a contaminant, you fucking idiots. It's an integral part of the atmosphere and a much needed one for life.
yeah,
Plants are happy as can be. And once plants are happy and reproduce, they're going to suck carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. It's going to reduce, and then plants begin to die, and we go for another cycle.
yeah,
When my ancestors came to New England, it was known as the Little Ice Age.
yeah.
The Hudson River used to freeze solid from the Bay of New York all the way to Canada and was used in winter as a highway. Same thing with the Delaware or the
Well,
Merrimack.
the northern Atlantic froze over in Neolithic times, and that's
Yeah, no, no, no. But I'm talking within our American history.
yeah,
And at about 1720, temperatures began to warm up, and they warmed up all the way to the 1930s, and it's been cooling since.
yeah,
And everything else they bring you is because there's money for them in it, whether it be getting more grants, because if you write about this bullshit, you get grants, no questions asked, or selling carbon credits like Al Gore and John Kerry and all of these corrupt politicians who steal you blind when they are in government and steal even more when they leave government with the complicity of their peers.
yeah.
Eh, that is all effective use of propaganda, isn't it?
Of course. I mean, there was a period known as the coniferous era on our planet when there was no there was only plant life because the atmosphere was made up entirely of carbon dioxide,
Yeah,
and nothing could live except for plants. And so there were giant pine trees, that dwarf anything alive today. And so our climate has changed so radically over the history of this planet that to
yeah,
claim that the planet is these science fiction movies where they have to leave the planet because humans have destroyed it, and it's like, oh, just
oh,
leave.
the planet will destroy humans before we destroy the planet.
Of course.
But Ayo says here, global temperatures are not yet as high as the medieval warm period. No, and apparently they won't be,
No,
because apparently it's reverted already.
no.
I have an interesting one for you uh,
Uh-huh.
from Faisal. What do you both think about the Indian, Arabian, Israeli, European Economic Corridor announced yesterday in the G20 summit? Biden
It,
said this is a really big deal. Well, don't worry about that, Faisal. He said the same shit about Obamacare, and we know how that ended up being. He says of everything, it's a real big deal,
yeah.
especially when he doesn't understand what the fuck everybody else is talking about.
Okay,
Uh,
say it. The which countries are involved?
oh no, it's zones, countries and zones. It's Indian, Arabian, Israeli, European Economic Corridor. Uh, It
I,
will
I,
change the face of the Middle East, the face of Israel, and will affect the entire world, said Netanyahu. He's right. Uh,
yeah, I
I,
don't.
I would propose to you, uh, Thomas, that this has in fact already been going on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's a great idea for every possible country to improve as much as it can. I mean, nobody knows this, but we, meaning the world, has been steadily stamping out extreme global poverty for
Yeah.
decades now, and we're
Well,
making
ever since the advent of capitalism.
yeah, and we're making a hell of an impact.
Yeah.
So
Nope.
I don't see
Let,
any. Uh huh.
let me underscore this because you just said one of the most profound truths that fly over the heads of people every day. In the 1600s, 95% of the population of the planet lived in abject poverty.
Yeah.
They were subsistence farmers, serfs, street urchins. 95% of the population of the world lived in extreme poverty. After only 200 years, since the Industrial Revolution started in Massachusetts and Liverpool, 80% of the population of the world does not. We have gone from 95% to 20%.
Yeah.
There's nothing that compares to the extreme success of trade and capitalism and development, stamping out poverty and disease.
Well, this is the thing. The International Monetary Fund has a target of wiping out extreme global poverty within the next 30 odd years. And
Yeah,
they're making a hell of a lot of progress on it. And it's not something that the press will report on because, you know, they need their pictures of little starving children who they photograph and then
yes.
leave to go back in their hotel. Let me keep talking while I look up something.
Yeah,
Um,
and by the way, Nancy Pigliosi, in announcing, by the way, I, 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 I remind people when I write about things, I have to remind people when I wasn't. I told you once that I didn't think that old Harpy was going to run again, and she did, and now she announced she's going to run yet again. Apparently, when she dies, she wants to be mummified so that her dead remains can run like the Cid going to battle dead on a horse.
right.
And she wants to do it because it is time that we export San Francisco values to the nation.
Wait, what? What did she say?
Yep, I know you were going to. Hold on, let me look for that one too. But she says that the nation needs San Francisco values.
Yeah, and she okay. I did hear her say that she's running in order to save democracy by imposing on it San Francisco values.
Yeah, because she says, she's running again. Now more than ever,
Yeah,
our
yeah.
city needs us to advance San Francisco values and further our recovery. I mean, come on. This is beyond senility.
Yeah, no, I mean it's the big lie, and she'll probably get elected. I mean,
Oh, come on. In San Francisco, she'll surely be elected.
yeah, and the deal is okay. Robert Klein, no, that's an actor. Somebody Klein wrote that what Democrats are saying behind the scenes is that everything is terrible. Biden economics doesn't exist. Biden is old. He's got no energy. When he goes out and he shouts about jobs and all this other stuff, it's all just you know smoke. It doesn't matter. Um, and this is the thing that okay, you have to deliver. You can't just lie to people. And if you don't deliver, you can lie to them if they're not really, really, really suffering. But all
Yeah, but,
Democrat,
but when the shit gets to here, nobody wants to hear your lies anymore.
all Democrat strongholds are suffering. They're suffering from Democratic policies, and that is a hell of a headwind for the Democrats in the upcoming elections. They're and they've embraced the worst mistake they ever made, and they're still making it to this day, is embracing transsexual activism. Um,
Isn't that nuts?
yeah,
Isn't
no,
that so fun? Now California is coming out with a Trans History Month.
yeah, yeah.
Well, the next thing I'm gonna see is a chapter in California school books saying how Benjamin Franklin was a trans and liked to be called Margaret. I mean,
No,
what the fuck is trans history? This is like a less than a year old bullshit.
well, also a full month. I mean, okay, Gay Pride Month isn't enough. Now we have to have Transsexual History Month. But okay, at some NFL game, these big fat people came out and sang the Black National Anthem. I didn't even know such a thing existed.
It
And
doesn't.
They were
If,
booed.
if, if it's black, it's not national.
They were booed the entire time,
Of
and
course.
they sang the black national anthem, and then they sang the national anthem. And I've never heard of the black national anthem. I'm not. I
Can
don't care to hear the
can
black
can,
national anthem.
can we write the men with oversized penises national anthem?
Well, I mean, again, just put the shoe on the other foot. The white national anthem that would get covered by the press, and it
No
would be
kidding.
covered negatively, of course. And
No
it should
kidding.
be, because there's no such thing as white monolithic unity. There's no such thing as white unity.
Any
Um,
more than there is black unity.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Africa. If there's black unity, the you know,
Well, they're killing each other.
I've stated this before. The Congo has 900 different ethnic groups, and they're all at war with each other.
Yep. And have been
Yeah, yeah,
since
forever.
they happened on their land.
Yeah,
But and Nigeria?
Nigeria.
Holy fucking case, it's a madhouse.
It's a madhouse, and so you have this is all tribalism. It all comes down to tribalism, whether you're black or white. And tribalism is the biggest monkey wrench in the machinery of progress.
Yep.
Everything the Russians are doing is due to tribalism, and
Yep.
it's primitive. It screws everything up. The Nazis, they were tribalists. They were socialists, and they were tribalists. They wanted to.
Speaking of socialists, I wonder when that thing was gonna come in. Because of course I do have a Goebbels quote on that.
Yeah,
The social is a stopgap. Socialism is the ideology of the future.
yeah.
There
No,
you go. Goebbels.
if you look anywhere, any dictionary, any historical dictionary, you see fascism described as far right. It's not. It's
No,
left. It's a
it's left.
collectivist ideology, and by definition, that means it's not conservative. It's not right wing.
Listen, when there was a little jig dig in the Nazi party when they were still in the parliament and hadn't acceded to government, well, not to the chancellery anyway. Uh, Goebbels got branded by Hitler because he started proposing the nationalization of industry, and we need to go to socialism. And Hitler essentially said, "Shut up, you fucking idiot! It's not time yet."
Yeah, yeah,
And with kinder words, I must add, I'm giving a little bit of color, but that's exactly the dialogue that ensued. And there are idiots today. Of course, Trotsky defined fascism as an illness of ours.
yeah.
Mm. But there are still people repeating Stalin's propaganda. After Stalin, after the Bolsheviks and the Nazis decided to jointly gang rape Poland and split Poland between the two of them. Uh, Kaliningrad is one of the consequences of that. Uh, Stalin needed to save face when shit went south. And through the late 40s and 50s, they always referred in all of their propaganda to Nazis and fascists as capitalists.
Yeah,
They weren't capitalists, they fought capitalism.
the Nazis were violent. Everybody should read the Nazi Party's 25-point plan. They violently opposed capitalism, and they wanted the nationalization of all industries and all profits. So
Yeah. So there you go. And you know, the fact that they were the enemies of capitalism, just read their documents.
yeah,
Eh, But according to Stalin in the 40s and 50s, they were the partners of capitalism.
yeah,
And that bullshit traveled 4 times around the world. And to this day, ignoramuses of whatever political persuasion keep referring to National Socialism as anything other than socialism.
Yeah. No, and they have some weird, incoherent reason for why the Nazis used the term socialist, even though they weren't socialist.
Yeah,
They use the term socialist because they're socialists. Period. End of story.
yeah. No, and if you don't believe that statement, go and read Johann von Deres and figure out exactly why the Nazis called themselves socialists.
Yeah.
They said it. It's not like they kept it hidden. Now, it is true. It is true. Once they got to be strong, both fascists in Italy and Nazis in Germany picked a fight with the Bolsheviks.
It's a struggle for power.
It's a struggle. Well, the Bolsheviks were internationalists, and the Nazis and fascists were nationalists. They did not want the Bolsheviks getting their nose under the Italian or German tents. And they were very, very specific on the condemnation of internationalism. But
Well,
other than that, they had very similar policies.
well, communism as it's practiced universally today and as it was practiced under Stalin was about as far from internationalist as you could get. Every communist nation has always been violently nationalist.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I would say that China is more of a fascist country than a communist country
of
today.
course, the Han
They have a
Chinese,
mixed economy,
yeah, the Han Chinese are about as nationalist as you could get.
as you
And
can get. Yep. Yeah.
try,
But by the way,
uh-huh.
do we have the yuan as the reserve currency of the world yet?
No, of course not.
You know what is the percentage of world transactions transacted in yuan?
No.
2%.
Well, the percentage of international of global transactions carried out in the dollars was
80.
just hit a record high.
An all-time high. Dollar, euro, dollar, euros and dollars, which go hand in hand, 80%.
Yeah,
Dollars alone, almost 50%.
yeah.
And by the way, who's buying Chinese bonds?
Who's bought Chinese yuan?
Who is buying Chinese bonds?
The Chinese.
Nobody. You see, the Chinese managed to sell $500 billion in bonds in the past 10 years, but in the past 2 years, holders unloaded 120 billion. And the holdings of Chinese bonds dropped 20%. Nobody's buying Chinese bonds, and people who have them are selling them. But the yuan is going to be the currency of the future. I'm going to jump on Sarah Mangas here. The yuan is going to be the world currency a day after the Bolivar achieves that honor.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Hold on. I'm trying to find. I used to know the total number of global wealth.
Oh God, it
I used
changes.
to know the total amount of personal wealth owned
Quintillions.
owned by Americans, and it doesn't come anywhere near another lie that's being spread now by our side is that Biden is giving away all our money to Ukraine. The U.S. has a GDP of like 23 trillion, and as we've gone over, I don't know how many times, we're not giving it the Ukrainians, any cash, and the book value of whatever it is we're giving them is not even. I think it's approaching 55 billion at this point. So if you don't know the difference between 55 billion and 23 trillion, then you are
You have a little bit of a problem.
yeah, you shouldn't be allowed to vote. Um, you know,
Listen, 43% of Americans don't know Biden is president, and they are allowed to vote.
yeah, no, it's true.
Makes you want to cry.
Well,
It's always been true.
this is how we've always been. We've never been a really educated people. We sort of turn up our noses at education, and I understand that today's college education. Um, I mean, a lot of people are they're getting degrees, worthless degrees that they're never gonna bring them a living. I got a worthless degree myself. I got a degree in history, but that was only because I had no idea what I was going to do. I I went into college. I mean, I went to the first college that accepted me because I was expected to go to college, and that was as far as the discussion went. And I had no idea what I was going to do in life, and so I liked history, so I studied history. Then I went to Japan. I spent 5 years in Japan. I came back here, and I was a process server. So I was the only thing I really wanted to do was be a writer, and I didn't know what kind of writer. And I ended up being a music journalist, and then